Okay, let's start. Well, welcome again, everyone. Thanks for joining today for our little webinar today about a actually non-very technical topic. Usually we talk about cloud platforms and ISVs, etc. But today I want to talk about a different topic which well popped up in my daily life, let's say like this. Maybe very short about who is actually talking. My name is Ronnie. I'm inside of EpicSite. I'm responsible for our channel for all marketing and sales activities. So I'm working since several years now in the cloud industry, working with resellers, distributors, the same as with mainly SaaS providers or software providers. And EpicSite tries to connect all of them and to ensure that the transformation from on-premise based business to a more digital basis goes well. We do that mainly with our cloud platform, but we also consult and talk, discuss with our partners about marketing and sales activities. And what I discovered in the last years, more or less, I want to share today a little bit what is actually the issue. The webinar is called what is the problem and how actually to fix it. It's my personal point of view and out of the experience I make here on a daily basis, and that's what I would like to share. Some of you I know, I checked you out a little bit before, are SaaS providers. We have some resellers in the call, and you work with distributors, probably know a little bit. ISVs or software vendors are turning more and more into a subscription-based business or consumption-based business, and that brings some kind of challenges. What stays more or less the same is that there's a multi-channel strategy. So as a vendor, and majority of vendors do that actually, I can sell directly to customers. So especially if I'm a startup, I'm of course choosing the direct way. And also big vendors have still a direct sales strategy. But at some point, I come apparently to the conclusion that maybe a reseller would help me to scale. I cannot build sales accountants everywhere. And especially now in the SaaS world, I can deliver global. So there is, of course, the question open, how can I sell global, how I can support global? And that opens up for the reseller channel. And if I want to scale even further, or I want to outsource some of the tasks which coming in the in this kind of direct reseller model to me as a vendor, I might choose a distributor to even lower the amount of work or the amount of management effort I have towards resellers. And well, we do see different kind of issues, problems, challenges, how you want to call it. And to go through that, let's maybe watch first of all what kind of vendors I differentiate. On the one hand, there are commodity offerings, and I define as a commodity offerings which you actually don't really have to sell. Customers want to have that anyway. A classical in our industry is, of course, the Microsoft offerings, especially the Office suite, or, of course, also operational systems. Majority of customers, B2B customers, are using it. And therefore, there's a ongoing demand for this kind of products. And of course, now more and more also the public clouds are requested by customers. So to sell that in general, I don't have to do a lot in the first step. But the challenge here is actually a bit how do I differentiate myself, since everybody can sell it and the vendors are even selling it themselves towards end customers. So in the commodity, one of the issues is where I justify my existence. What is it, what I can deliver on top of that? Then we have global vendors. I just picked some random ones, brands which are known. If you go to a customer with this kind of offering, then you will usually find people who understand what you're actually offering. You don't have to describe so much about what is it, but of course a bit about features and details. But in general, there is also a demand. Maybe it's not a commodity, but customers are requesting those kind of things on a regular basis, and they know the brand very well, so you don't have to go in depth to explain a customer what is Symantec. Of course, in the solution, then there is then, of course, there are many solutions which the customer doesn't know exactly, but in general, that's what I would define as a global vendor. And then we are watching on local vendors, where I would say that is an offering which the customer might not know from the start. It can be, of course, a startup with a very specific offering. It can be, in that I have illustrated here with your logo here, it can be your offering, what you were spinning up, either as a vendor or even as a reseller. If you have a service or a product running, you count for me, of course, also as a vendor, since you are providing it. And the differentiators, or let's say the issues in all different categories, in combination with different kind of reseller categories, are different. What we can say already is there is, of course, common interest for all of them. Commodity, customers want it, so there is a flow of interest all the time. But if we are watching on margin, then the smaller vendors get more and more interesting. They want to have market share and are willing to give margin away for that. And so I need to watch as a reseller into all of those categories to understand where I can position myself best, and where I can actually build my business on. So there is an interest. We can see an interest of resellers watching on SaaS solutions, but I need to solve several issues so that I'm successful, and which is comes together with that, I can actually also earn money. And if we are watching on the jobs, I know it's a very full slide, but well, that is what has to be done. If I'm acting as, for now, in the first slide, as a vendor, there are different kind of jobs I have to do to run my business. Some are more effort, some are less. But if I'm doing direct sales, I'm selling as a vendor directly to an end customer, I, in essence, have to perform all of them. It starts with making customers aware and do the sales job, in essence. Then, of course, implement, provision the platform, implement the platform, over operating, and then also maintain platform, etc. And of course, last but not least, the last column, all about the product, pricing, research development, etc. So a lot of jobs I have to do, therefore I get all of the margin. And if I now start to work with resellers, logically I expect that resellers are taking over some of the jobs, because they want to have a decent amount of my profit. And that's how we see it usually. The vendor is keeping all product-related tasks. Has been a bit different in the on-premise business, but now in the SaaS business, it's possible and more or less also necessary that the reseller is taking over the task we have here on the left side. And in the indirect channel, it changes a bit. Distributors are pitching in. They take over the task, especially about the automation. So they, to provide a quote to cash platform, or commerce platform, brokerage platform, however you want to call it. Usually they also help with education of partners, and go sometimes even into a sales job. But the maturity here in the actual market differs. So there are distributors which still have this kind of taste of a box mover, they are actually a place to buy from, not necessarily a place where I can get help in selling, and where still some of the boxes are not really supported, and either the vendor or the reseller has to pitch in. However, let's not go deep in that. Let's look actually in what actually makes a difference and where this kind of misunderstanding come from. You can read it everywhere, and everybody will tell vendors, you have to, of course, decide if resellers are the right strategy, but they're an opportunity if you want to scale, if you want to go global. Resellers are the right way of doing it. And the resellers, on the other hand, get a lot of input from vendors like Microsoft, but also in general, the input to have a look on SaaS offering, to build a portfolio around that and wrap services around it, since the standard license selling is fading out. So to have a look on that and see the margins which are given away, of course, dependent on the ISV I'm actually selling. But the opinion that it is really important and that it makes totally sense, that is something what you have all heard. The question is now, why does it bring so much problems? Why is it not that we hear that resellers are selling SaaS solutions so much? Why are SaaS providers very often still much more successful in selling themselves instead of running a completely successful reseller channel? And the first category which I have chosen here is actually sales. And if you're watching on sales, then you have to say that majority of resellers are born earlier than the cloud, and therefore they are following a little bit other structures, product sales or solution sales, which is in many parts different than actually SaaS sales. And to illustrate that a bit, what I mean by that, let's have a look. Let's a little bit go back and check on the history on sales. Sales, when it developed, it was, well, very easy. You had, in essence, the so-called mom and pop shop. The customer comes in, wants to have a solution, and he gets a nice consulting from mom who tells, well, that is what we have. I make my decision to buy, and then the solution gets deployed. With the more development of product sales, more products, more volume, that developed into a hunter and farmer model. That is actually something where I grew up with. I was a so-called hunter, going after customers, closing the deals, but after the customer has bought, giving it immediately to the internal sales or the farmers, who then work with the customer in making him, growing him bigger, and working on the customer relationship more than I would do, since I'm busy to hunt already the next customer. And well, that is how it happens still in many companies which I meet. There are the key account manager, where the bonus is really on bring maximum deal sizes and business in shortest amount of time, and an inside sales organization who would take care about them. But in SaaS business, everything is a little bit more granular, and so a model actually developed in that there are lead managers, so that the so-called hunter actually doesn't have to do all the lead generation anymore. So inbound and outbound marketing was developing, and I find more and more marketing activities which are actually not just supporting the brand, but also delivering leads to the sales managers. And on the other hand, we are developed a customer service who would take care about once the purchase is done by the customer. So adding some more layers. Worked for a while, but still the effort, if we are watching on SaaS offerings, the effort for many of the SKUs or offerings we have is still very high, since there's a lot of personal touch points in that process. So what has been developed is the new SaaS model 2.0, where we go much more granular and where we also start to tier customers. We have a small customer or self-service layer, the medium-sized, and an enterprise layer, as you can see on the right side. And the roles in between are a little bit different. The self-service, as the name already says, should be usually a layer which has a zero-touch approach, so where the complete customer journey is done without anyone in the organization touching. And the reason for that is that the SKU price or the sales price is simply too low. The monthly recurring revenue, although it's SaaS and subscription, I have recurring revenue, but calculating that on the year, the revenues are too low to actually justify human interaction with this kind of SKU. So one self-service layer. In the medium layer, I have still my outbound and inbound, and both are getting more and more important. Outbound has existing a little bit longer, so there's an experience there. Inbound is something which develops maybe that then since 2012, 2014, when the big system started to develop, where content management, etc., is getting more and more interesting to develop leads for then sales managers, and I have customer success management who cares after the sales. And for enterprise, I'm more or less driving the same approach like always, very high solution costs and therefore also revenues and profit, which easily justifies that there's a dedicated business development representative who feeds field account executives, who then wins the deal, gives it to a CSM, a customer success manager, and then there's an account manager who works on additional business. That is the rough overview. If I'm talking to customers from both sides, I go even a bit more deeper, then it looks like this. That's maybe for the today webinar a bit too deep, since we have that not as the only topic. However, what you can see here is the customer journey from awareness to expansion and the different roles. Who does here actually what, how the customer flow should be, and what are the rules about this. But for us today, it's maybe enough to watch like this, and we would say the small sector should be something what is handled by technology and should be completely automated. The mid-market should be touched, but on demand. So there has to be things in place which nurture the lead until it's less about if he will buy, but more about what he will buy. So all the education should be done by technology, or at least with very less touch points. And actually sale is still done by account executives, but in general, not in meetings or product presentations, which are on the customer side. These are usually things which are working online. And the enterprise, as it is today, also account manager, key account manager, which are traveling through the countries or having a lot of calls per day to do more or less the process manual piece by piece. Of course, they are supported by marketing initiatives, but the customer tiering is one thing where actually SaaS, fresh founded SaaS providers learn that in the SaaS provider school. Tier your offerings, start with marketing automation, and they are very often very good in that. But if I give the same SKU now to a reseller who is used to sell large on-premise solutions and now goes after SaaS solutions, this knowledge and the process is not there. And so we do see heavy paid key account manager selling super low volume SKUs. And this is not fun for no one. And there's no point that actually the provider, the CSP or reseller in general, can earn money on that. And that is one of the major things which goes wrong, that the sales process are not there yet, not digitalized. There are we are selling the wrong products with the wrong process, and so the sales is not motivated at all. And also the management will lose motivation to sell, since they actually lose money. You cannot just create enough customers if you create them in the old, very expensive approach. Probably one of the things which we see most, that there is simply no motivation. 30% of a medium SKU price is still not a lot if I use this kind of resources to actually gain it. But if I get over this, if I'm moving forward, then the question is, how do I actually make my customer stay? And how do I design now the customer journey from the point where he have bought? The idea here is, how do I actually design customer journeys in general? And customer journeys are defined, by whom you ask, a bit different. So have a look what I mean actually by this. And we are watching here on the first part, until the customer buys. The first measurement is how we would, in our CM system, define the lead status from subscriber to customer. And the journey parts: awareness, education, selection, and signing. Depending on who's in the call today, you might have learned a bit different, probably comparable but different. That's how we would define from our side the SaaS customer journey. And I have listed here some examples, and what is actually needed, or what are different modules to guide my customer through this journey. And if we are watching on it, then a digital customer journey. Customers are buying and informing themselves more and more in the internet. The process starts very often with, I type in Google. So search engine marketing is very often a start. So I need to start to create content which I can make available for customers to optimize that then for search engines. Of course, classical things like speaking engagements, events, etc. are still working to actually raise awareness, to make my customer aware of, in the best case, the product I want to sell, but very often about a challenge he might have, or upcoming events which might influence his business. So the way of raising awareness can have different kind of shades. It makes totally sense to use here also digital ways like automated email campaigns. Email is still not dead. Spamming is, but a very good email is definitely still a very good way of attracting customers, which I don't know. But social media gives us, in general, of course, many ways how to segment my target group much more better and approach them on different kind of ways. Then starts the education, and that is a tricky point because I need content here. There are, I have listed here just some. It's not like I need all of this for all of my products, but I will need definitely content to tell my customer what is it actually about, to maybe educate him more on the topic. Let's maybe, for example, security in bring your own device, so that he really understands what is actually the issue, and that he comes then very pre-educated to things like my product page or presentations which I have made for him available. And if you are watching on all of those, as I'm saying, it's not like 100% has to be available, but still, then we see SaaS providers who struggle to provide all this content in an efficient way. If we are watching on blog entries, so write articles about topics which are not your product and not your company, but about content which helps customers to understand the value of products like yours or the necessity, then this is something what is definitely the bottleneck, to create that content in a way that the customer doesn't feel like you throw an advertisement on him, but gains a value. So to understand you are the place to go if I'm watching on security, or if I'm watching on bring your own device, or whatever your service is you want to actually sell. And if the SaaS vendors have already a problem to create that content and keep it actual, maintain actually a constant update of information, then how the reseller will be able to do that? So we need the content to actually enable self-service or highly automated supported sales process, but that means we need the content to do it. And there's definitely a cut in the process that the where somebody has to step in. Either the reseller will have to modernize also his marketing department, choose different kind of vendors and work with them in creating this journey, or vendors have to step up and provide all this content in a scalable way so that resellers can use it. And here the market is, I would say, still not very mature. So vendors hope that when a reseller signs up as a reseller of my product, then he will figure out, and I can say, no, they won't. And here is some need for improvement. And we are, from our side, working on that still. That is something what has to move on. In general, if you watch on this, awareness can be done via campaigns. There are many ways to the success, but the nurturing is something. If I do it manually with people, educate, tell customers, present solution, make the demos, and all the time use human beings, I make the sales process so expensive that majority of solutions are already out of scope, or as I'm saying, I don't earn any money. And sales should actually always start actually only when the lead is already qualified, when it's discussing about details, but not discussing solutions. And there I have to just tell you, for mid-touch and tech-touch segments. Of course, in enterprise, everything is justified. If you make a deal over several millions, you can spend, of course, some days or even weeks to sell it. Sounds easy to have the customer journey like, well, I show him this, then he leads that, then he registers for my webinar, and then he will probably want to see a reference, and then he will buy. In reality, it's a little bit different. That is here one example on how the customer journey can actually go. I might read a blog post which has been launched by some of you in the LinkedIn, and click there what you click on your website, because that was a really interesting topic, and I think about who are you, who is this company, and why do they know things I don't. I find it interesting and sign maybe up for something. Maybe you have produced an e-paper which really explains what is right now in my head. I have a question and you promise me the answer. Of course, you want to have my mail for that. And there in the company, somebody sees that, and that I'm going after the contact, and she will or he will contact me, so that everything is completely fine. We have a short conversation, and we maybe have even a call. Everything went perfect. And what you will know from if you're working in sales or you're having interaction with sales, what happens then very often is that sales is very excited. Everything brings very well. They have start already nearly to spend the money they will earn on the deal, but then it goes completely dark. So we cannot find out what actually happened, and that can have a million reasons. Well, in reality, out of my sales experience in the old times, what we did is we called 3 more times, tried to figure out, sent a mail, but at one point I just close the deal as lost. I won't find out what actually happened, and the customer is gone and I'm hunting the next one, I will not be able to wait. And that is what is, of course, happening in any kind of sales. But to avoid that and to be able to scale much more and do not close opportunities at that stage, I can actually use marketing tools so far. And we have different ones. If we are watching on, then I showed you the different kind of contents. You can group that into different kind of categories. Some you give away for free, some you give away actually by having in mind that you get at least the email, which you can nurture. And then it is about to use even more. So if the deal goes blind, what could have happened is, well, he simply didn't have the budget, or he's not the decision maker. He's more the influencer who was actually collecting information and goes now inside and discuss that in the group about what should we do, etc. So what would make sense is, of course, to give him a bit more information, and the automated way would here be the best. But for this, still, you need to have that content to offer him demos, to offer him webinars. What we are talking about is here the lead nurturing, which should happen. Systems today can then give the lead a score, so I can measure his activity. When he comes back to the website, I can check what he does. Is he reading more content about it, more valuable content, like taking part in webinars, etc., so that I actually go after this kind of customer when it's necessary, and not jump on him as soon as he pops up and gives me the mail and try to hard sell here. But what we also see is that majority of content today is still missing. There is not a big difference. Of course, there's a difference between resellers and vendors. However, there's a rule. It never is too less awareness content. So awareness raising, all of our partners are really good in, to have initial articles here and offerings there, and that works usually very well. But they are specifically very poor in education and in actually spending time in explaining customers, not the product, but educate him on what it's actually about. And that can be, if we are talking about bring your own device, which I took now apparently as a topic today, then really to figure out what are the different areas I should watch on, what are different concepts, sorting out, giving him real researched content about that kind of topic, so that it's not about the solution here. It's really about to give him all the information he needs to then come to the conclusion what is actually the problem and what kind of solution would be would have actually make his day and close the case here. In other stages, selection stages, I find then very often a lot of comparing content to give customers information about what other options you might have, why we are better than others. You see the Gartner quadrant and whatever. So there's again a little bit more content, and then in onboarding and use expansion, it goes down again. What is suggested is use the people you have. You have the content, you just have to bring it on paper. Cut the effort actually in half what you spent on awareness and create education content. That will be the bottleneck. But your internal, this graphic here on the right side is usually how SaaS providers are solving the issues, or should do it, using their account executives, their customer success managers, and let them speak about their experience, let them blog, let them write about about different kind of even support topics, so that the customer feels these people are good in what they're actually talking about. For the education, you need a strategy. What is it where I want to drive my customer? What is it what he doesn't know? Again, if I'm watching on this, I need a lot of content. I need to decide how to drive the customer journey. It's not just content. It's not just about, well, we have to post something in Facebook 5 times a week because otherwise we are not actual. But people will not follow you. They will unfollow you if you don't provide valuable content. And as a reseller, as a company which has had so far a focus on completely other things, how can you expect that they are able to provide this content for a very specific topic you want them to resell? So content is an issue, and if I have the content created by an agency, created by a strategy which I have inside of the reseller, or maybe even created by the vendor, then the question is, how do I design, how I automate actually this process, how I run my inbound and outbound campaigns to actually reach the target, to automate my entire customer journey until the customer actually signs or buys. It's marketing automation. It's not that I would have invented that. It's at the market. Vendors are using it nearly all. Every vendor, SaaS provider I met, they have a proper marketing automation. Resellers, I don't meet a lot. It's maybe 1 out of 10 who have started to do things like this. I don't talk about using MailChimp. I'm talking about having a real strategy on automating the customer journey, being able to close a deal without touching him at all. That is where there's still a gap in the market. There are a lot of solutions in the market, starting from Marketo lately, then now Adobe, over HubSpot, which seems to be a favorite in the vendor area, Eloqua from Oracle, Salesforce, Acton. These are massive solutions depending on the size, maybe a bit heavy to start, although all of them has an entry program, but they are also more lightweight solutions to get into it. But in general, if you want to reduce the effort and the touch points in the selling process, you will need to talk about marketing and sales automation, and then a solution like this will be on your list sooner or later. Just as a feedback, we are using ourselves HubSpot for marketing automation. They have a free CRM, what is a good start, let's say like this. And then it goes in marketing, sales, and service automation. However, different companies might find different solutions more interesting. If you want to ask me for feedback on, then HubSpot would be the one where I can deliver most of the feedback afterwards. Well, I made everything, and however I made it, but my customer signed. Now it's actually about making him stay. I was a little bit early on the last slide. Now I want to make him stay, and actually before he stays, I need, he made the decision to buy, how he can buy in a way where he will not call me and say, I want to buy 5 of those licenses, and then I have to go into a system and register that and provision him, send him a mail with all those kind of things. It's again about automation, but it's in essence a little bit different automation, different tools which might be needed here. And here, vendors and resellers the same have the challenge to find the right maturity here. We see still a lot of vendors which have a buy button, but if I press it, nothing happens. I send actually email notification to sales. So if I'm a SaaS provider, even if I sell direct, there has to be the possibility that I can actually buy my solution without that there are manual processes in the company. Otherwise, I will have to raise the price for the solution, or like we also see, have a minimum requirements. So the smallest amount is 5 licenses per customer. So I actually exclude a big amount of possible customers just because of that, just because the effort to spin up a new solution, even with SaaS, is simply too high. And here we are coming into the game as a company, but there are other solutions which do comparable things. What we are providing in this case is a quote-to-cash platform. So what I need is, I need a place where the customer can actually configure a proposal, more or less, so a quote. If I don't want to send that as a Word document, well, a good place to get actually a quote would be the website, which brings the necessity that I have an integration of my later checkout platform and my website, for example. But there are solutions like that. So we have a CPQ, configure price quote integration, which I can put on my website, so customer can configure his offering there if it's a more complex offering, and then go on a cloud commerce platform. That is what usually platforms can do. I can watch the product, I can buy the product there, I can pay my product there, can make the contract, and the invoicing will be automated. And also then later in the process, as a customer, I want to manage whatever I have bought here. We are talking about subscriptions, so customers enjoy to consume on demand. And or even by usage. And last but not least, that opens up for a lot of analytics to find out how's the behavior actually of the customer, what gets bought, where, from whom, together with what, and so that I actually can use this data later on also to predict a little bit how I should develop my solution or how I should react as a reseller. But if I want to have things like this, I either have to develop it or I have the solution in the market. The majority of solutions we see at the market concentrate on subscription management. I can buy it, and then I can also, as a customer, can go in, see all my subscription, can cancel it, can change it, can add some add-ons, etc. I have a reporting on that. It gets automated provisioned, so I think that is main reason why I should, as a vendor, think about this. And of course, then as a reseller, because, well, I will have to provision it at this point. And, also the payment cycle and everything about billing should be actually handled in a platform like that. The platform you see on the pictures is ours, but as I say, there are others in the market which in general promise the same. A commerce platform should be able to do a little bit more. Subscription management is usually only one. If I watch on the customer journey, I had all this marketing automation and integration into my website. So that is something what is, of course, important. I have to start the customer journey somewhere, and it shouldn't be interrupted at one point. So cloud commerce and digital marketing or marketing automation should go together. Customers should be also able to configure more complex solutions on your website. You spend a lot of money, a lot of effort on my last slides to actually get your customer then educate there. So you don't want that he has to go somewhere else to actually buy. Therefore, CPQ would be a reasonable tool. Then the payments has to be managed. You have to be flexible, offer different kind of payment models, prepayment, one-time payments, but also annual or monthly or whatever, or even subscription-based payments, which then leads to that the billing engine has to do the same. You need to have the analytics, short a data warehouse, things what you will bring there. If you don't have it, you can work. It's not like it wouldn't work without it. But we have, I have examples of resellers who are driving even with the most commodity services where provisioning is as good as automated as possible, 200, 300,000 euros a month, so MRR, 200, 300K, and still lose money. And the reason for that is that there are just too many touch points in the process. So if I try to do this manually, yes, I can use Microsoft or other vendors' platforms to actually order the things and manage the things. But if a customer has to call somebody to tell, I need to do that, I need some more, I need some less, and then somebody has to tell somebody, well, can you please order that? I have to start the internal process. Then all the support, if everything is manual interaction, then the very small margins, which we have especially in the commodity where the most business is so far, will just go into effort you spend to actually maintain the customer. So that is something what majority of resellers also have to understand. They are often motivated or even forced by vendors to have a solution like this, but these solutions should of course also support then other vendors, so that I actually can build my business model or rebuild my business model if I have already one just on premise, using all the options, all the services, all the offers I had before or I want, and having that in one platform. It doesn't make sense that if my customer gets a new user who needs Office Suite, but also his HR solution and his CRM and so on. And I have to register all the new accounts and make all the setting in different kind of platforms. Then I will go out of budget again. So it has to be one which combines it all. I showed you earlier what is actually the job map, and just to give you a little overview, Epicside with our solution, it doesn't really matter if we are if vendors are using our solution for the direct sales or a vendor using it for managing it, direct partners, or a distributor are using it to manage the channel. The red marked parts are what we can actually support with our solution, with our commerce platform. There are then also other boxes which we can talk about. We help vendors with pricing and etc. And also we have our own marketing agency which can help with campaigning, so that I can actually add here even more. But you can see that if I'm thinking about how can I actually reduce the effort which I spend, how I can make it more efficient as a reseller to sell solutions like this, then a solution, a commerce platform, is definitely something I should watch on. Apart from things I have mentioned before, solid CM with the marketing automation tool, that would be something what is definitely needed. And well, for today, I'm as I told, I will not go into features, etc. For me, it was very important today to actually give just an overview and also a little bit of inspiration on. We have vendors in the call, so what I should actually talk to my resellers. Does it make sense to expect from them to sell, and what I should maybe also help them with if they don't, and what I should consider, which kind of model I find most realistic to actually go, apart from the direct sales, which many of you will do. And for the resellers, it's really about to not only transform your statement towards the market and have all the cloud services in the portfolio, but to also understand what does it mean to sell in a digital world where the customer comes over the search engine, where people are Googling every day questions which are starting with how can I, how to, what is. That is how people get the information today. I could bombard you now with numbers like how many percentage of customers have done that decision already when they contact the provider, and these decisions are done by research, and research is done in internet. That is super clear. I'm not sure when I actually had a real-time meeting. They are the absolute exception. The majority of things are going already video-based because customers simply don't want to invest in time-consuming meetings, and you shouldn't do either. So I think for today, everything I wanted to say. We might run some webinars in future to go a bit deeper on different topics. There are some webinars available already. Watch on our YouTube channel if it's about cloud platform, what is important about that, if there's a topic you are watching on. And we will go more in detail on the marketing topics soon as well. So thank you for joining today. And I hope I will see you in one of the next ones. If you have some feedback, please don't wait. Add me in LinkedIn or communicate over social media with us. It's always good to hear what is good, what is not. Thank you very much.